Hi, I'm Rigger. This is Your Right, and today I'd like to expand on something I started discussing in my episode 9 review. Let's discuss the cat. And in that review, I mentioned that its possible fate could be something worth discussing, but perhaps not just getting rid of them. After I talked about this, one of the sentiments I saw repeated was, of course, that the cat is terrible and doesn't deserve anything better than death. And I do agree in theory. Morally speaking, no matter what happened to the cat and how much it suffered, it still doesn't excuse the things it's done. It's a reprehensible being that has murdered, manipulated, and sacrificed others for its own selfish gain. It doesn't deserve a good ending. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't give it to it, so let's talk about it. Wanting villains to get their just desserts, to face justice, is fair. Their actions have earned them a poor ending, and them achieving what they want probably doesn't feel fair, and it feels like justice for the audience to see them get it. That's all fair and true. But the point of what I was talking about has nothing to do with the villain. It's nothing to do with the cat at all. It's all about our heroes. Even if a villain deserves death, that doesn't mean our heroes should always deal it out. First, there is the hero thing. We should want our heroes to be heroic, and that can occasionally mean making a suboptimal choice because it's the right thing to do. Obviously, if you agree it's the right thing to do or not is up to you. But also, my other big point that I really wanted to talk about was that there's an opportunity here to learn, and our heroes learning is the most important thing there can be. This circles back to why we'd want to do something other than just kill the cat. The central part of that is, very obviously and blatantly, the cat referenced what had been done to it to RWBY. Now, the others don't know that for now, that's fine. But RWBY knows, and RWBY knows and saw the equivalent story for Salem, that the cat is yet another being who has been completely screwed over by the gods. It is trapped with a burning, endless desire driving it mad that it can't fulfill no matter what it does, left to suffer and become destructive. That's the exact circumstances of our overall big bad guy, left with an eternal curse and afflicted with a burning hunger and left to become destructive. The cat may not be technically immortal, but it's in a place where it'll endlessly be remade one way or another, except at least it does have an out option, but picking that out option is incredibly difficult and not something you should say it should just do. That's not fair either. And especially things change when you add on to it that it has this burning need, this desire, the unending need to satiate its curiosity. That changes things from Salem's situation a little bit. At least in why going to the Jabberwocker isn't the answer to its problem. Because yes, Salem turned to death, self-destruction, as a way out, an attempt. Because that's what she wants. Death was withheld from her. That's the thing she wants to gain, and she can't. And now, because of taking that dip, she wants destruction, and she has to satiate that. The cat is the exact same in that it also can't get what it wants, but what it wants is different, because what it wants is to satisfy that need for curiosity, those answers it has to find, but it can't. So, finding a way out through destruction and just ending itself is not the satisfying answer to what it desires. It still can't get those. So, death isn't the answer for it, but it still can't achieve what it wants, just like Salem can't achieve what she wants. If the cat dies, its curiosity will never be satiated. It still never got what it wanted, achieved its purpose, what it needs, and what it was cursed with. Luckily, this does mean the cat is technically mortal. They can just kill it. We can do that as the ending. They can feed it to the Jabberwocker. The cat is scared of the Jabberwocker in a way that implies it will work, so there is a version of this where just, hey, like Neo is here, Neo hates the cat, so if the cat gets ejected from Neo, she can decide, screw that cat, and here's a Jabberwocker for nom-noms. And there you go, cat's done. Because she can summon them with the powers and everything too. Seems to be fine. That could be an answer, it's totally right there. But that doesn't help us learn anything. I mean, don't worry about what happens to the cat, whether you think it's fair or just. Our characters haven't learnt from this. Sure, they could just take it on board as like a lesson and use it to discuss later. Like, hey, did you realize the cat was kind of like Salem? That kinda sucks, doesn't it? But talking about that in the past tense reveals nothing more about the cat, reveals nothing more about the gods, reveals nothing more they can use. Just like Salem, this cat would do anything to try and satisfy its needs, even if it meant self-destruction and destruction of those around it. And we already knew that about Salem. Just, we learned the same thing. In fact, that seems to be exactly her plan, self-destruction through what she wants. So what have we gained from this experience? Not really anything. The cat can absolutely be just another bad guy and we win and go home. It's satisfying enough in beating the villain. But the cat is a special kind of villain, with abilities and a visual style completely different than anything else. They put effort into making this thing special. Even amongst Ever After, it is special. Sure, a special weird villain for a special weird volume, but I can't help but feel it just feels like a waste. I admit though, in the reality of the situation, things get more difficult. Like, I will say, as far as being heroic, I hope they do at least kill it over leaving it. That would be awful. If the ending is that our heroes escape and leave the cat trapped in torment in the Ever After forever, then there's legitimately, that's a villain move. There's almost nothing worse you could do. So at least we put it out of its misery, I hope, if we aren't taking it with us or doing anything else. As for the cat ascending, it feels like its desires are far too strong to be remade into something without those desires, so that wouldn't help. And especially if, like Salem, it can't just get rid of its curse in that way, because it's a curse from the gods, so it just persists. Also, there's the reality of if it returned to Remnant, that'd probably be really bad. It would join Salem. At least almost assuredly it would, because her wants are to reunite the relics, and reuniting the relics would summon the gods back, and that sounds like a good plan to the cat, who wants to talk to the gods, so, it all adds up. So I totally agree that it isn't the smartest option, but, Batman killing the Joker would be the smartest option, and that doesn't happen either. So I'm still not convinced it's the wrong one, if that makes sense. Even though it's not the smartest idea, I'm not convinced for the story it's not the best idea to keep it around and keep talking to it to try and learn. I just keep coming back to this opportunity in front of the heroes to talk, learn from, observe, and consider the closest being they will ever come across that's like Salem but isn't Salem. That they will probably ever find in the entire story. This is your best chance to learn something. I'm not even sure what that should be necessarily, except that it should be something. I feel like the team doesn't learn anything from just killing it, and the team can't kill Salem. So we need some kind of other solution. Perhaps that the cat can tell them something about what they need to do, or perhaps they can learn what they need to say to a being like that to help convince it. Some kind of bargaining, some kind of deal, some kind of alternate solution, some kind of other path, some kind of approach that isn't swinging weapons or shooting magic at it, because none of that does anything to Salem. So using that here to deal with the same problem won't help us later. And in the end, I don't have a good answer. I just really wanted to bring up this talking point in its own little video. I will say also, just funnily enough going back over the cat, there is some funny irony here, where the cat might have set up its own fate if it were to come back, not as the cat, but as part of someone else, like if it could get back through Neo. Because earlier, the cat did comment on Ozpin and Oscar, said, oh, the old man and the boy share a body now? Oh, that has some unfortunate implications. Who thought that was a helpful way to reincarnate? Yeah, just like that's the cat being meta for us and being the Cheshire Cat and commenting on the story, but it would be funny if it actually foreshadowed its own ending and that happened to it too. It already is almost that. It basically is right now kind of a spirit in a body it shouldn't be in. It's just not really fighting for control because Neo's not fighting back. And if it went through the gate, like if it actually did manage to get through the gate in a body and that somehow trapped it as one being rather than allowing them to separate, it's like a locked in thing because you went through a magical portal and fused, that could be something, although I'm not really sure exactly with who. It is interesting to note that in this fight so far, the cat seems far less powerful while inside Neo. It doesn't straight up teleport anymore. It seemingly is much more limited in its capabilities, like it doesn't have its giant, destruction laser beam that it had. It's not using that. It also hasn't attempted to take over anyone's heart at the moment, and maybe it can't do that while trapped in someone else's body and completely controlling them, so that could be something because it's sort of already doing that. I don't know, but you can see that it's clearly using much more Neo's semblance and abilities than anything, with some, alterations because it's in control. So if it went through the gate like that and fused to a person, it might actually restrict the cat's powers so it isn't as powerful on the other side, therefore making it not quite so OP, so even if it did go join Salem, it wouldn't just automatically win with the teleporting and everything else. It's said also that Neo can't go back because she has no desire to leave. So if RWBY does survive and comes back and they all escape, then maybe she would have, and her and the cat can go through because she would have a desire to follow RWBY and still get revenge because it didn't stick the first time. Although I guess the lesson was that killing RWBY didn't satisfy that urge, so doing it again wouldn't satisfy her either, but you could work something out, like, oh, she wants to find a purpose, or maybe RWBY can help her find a purpose, so let's follow them home, let's take this lesson learned and, evolve Neo, that kind of thing. Could do something like that, and the cat tags along because it's, trapped inside or whatever, who knows. And that ends up making them an Oscar Ozpin situation stuck in the same body, switching in and out with their different desires, the cat wants the relics and to go to Salem, but Neo wants to find a purpose that isn't that because she's tried that. You could do something fun. And, the cat's the only sort of voice in the head, but Neo can, mime her expressions back, and the cat can respond to a voice we don't hear, so it's kind of funny, you can imply what Neo said. There's some comedy set up there, but I don't think that's the purpose of what we're doing. It is also a fun idea for a reveal, like the team feel bad about leaving Neo trapped in the Ever After. They sort of don't want that because, again, heroics, even though she's not a good person. So they take her knocked out body back with them. And for some reason, the tree allows this because they're taking it. I don't know. And then post-credits, Neo opens their eyes and boom, cat's eyes, dun dun dun. But, probably not. Or Little, which would also be fun, although not a good ending for Little. If Little ascends here to help Ruby home, which it looks like, then to complete their mission to be a guide perhaps, or doing that, and then what? They've helped Ruby get home, and then they're pointless again. Do they just immediately start ascending again? That would be kind of sucky for Little. I mean, the answer is actually probably that Little will ascend to not be a guide, but to protect Little's friends, because Little obviously failed to do that before, was unable to protect their friends, so now they want to become a being that can do that, because Ruby doesn't need a guide, she's already at the tree. So that's what I assume, that's my guess what Little will be. Come back as some sort of warrior to protect Ruby and co. Which, to squeeze in a mini theory here, would actually be an explanation for why Little doesn't tag along. I mean, yes, Ruby is Little's friend, but Little didn't have a purpose. Now, having protected Ruby and sent them home, Little will have a purpose and will stay behind and be the new knight. Not necessarily a rusted knight, doesn't have to fill that role, just be a knight, a hero that protects all of their friends, aka all the Afterans who aren't bad, aka become the new knight and just defend against the one Jabberwocker that's left over. That's my actual prediction. Although it would be cool to see Little go back to Remnant as like a magical walking around almost human-sized warrior mouse. That would be fun. And if the cat was in there, and then it would be cat and mouse in one being. Again, silly but funny. Again, it's unlikely. And that only leaves Juniper, which again, doesn't seem like it's happening. So, as fun as it would be to discuss, it doesn't seem likely. The funniest one would actually be the cat being trapped in Weiss's head, but that's definitely not happening, obviously. Just those personality clashes in the same mind would be very amusing. Oh, before I go, one more just crazy thought. Imagine if they tried feeding the cat to the Jabberwocker, and we just assume that that's gonna work. But remember how the cat took over Neo? It dove down her throat. Imagine if the cat was, say, cursed by the gods and couldn't be destroyed. Obviously, he'd never tried it before. Why would you try diving down the throat of the being of ultimate death and destruction in your universe? You would never try that. But imagine if they basically fed the cat to the Jabberwocker, thinking that would be the result, and the cat managed to take the Jabberwocker over. I mean, we saw the Jabberwocker bleed. We've seen it have self-preservation and thought, so it's got a consciousness of some type, despite how warped it may be. It's not just mindless. So imagine if, in trying to kill the cat, we actually turned the Jabberwocker into a part cat. Now, I still don't think it could probably get out, but I'll tell you what, if this was going to be like a 2-stage boss fight, like you think you beat the boss, but then there's a round 2, that's how I'd do it. Get the cat out of Neo, and just find a way to destroy it, and either she summons a Jabberwocker, or the real one shows up, and they basically throw the cat to the Jabberwocker to be eaten, and it goes down the Jabberwocker's throat, and you think it's over, and then suddenly the mask on the Jabberwocker cracks open, and it has cat's eyes, and it starts coming after you. And it has ultimate death powers now, because if it eats you, same thing applies, because you can't do what the cat does. Just a crazy idea. Not gonna happen, but very cool. But yeah, look, I agree. It feels like we're just gonna kill the cat. I just wish it weren't. The point of this discussion is not, I think this way, I just think it's fun to talk about because I feel like there's an opportunity here that we're gonna miss out on. The Jabberwockers also haven't really done anything yet, and the cat does act afraid of them, so yeah, that all adds up. I can imagine it's most likely, but I just end up feeling like it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. So this isn't a theory. This is not saying it'll happen. I just like the discussion of what if. It almost feels so intentional that the cat is so equivalent to Salem, is so particular, and stands out so much that when the cat dies, it feels like it's gonna be a waste. Almost like it was an accident, but I can't believe it was an accident because they're so close in their setup. And if we could learn something that could help us with Salem, that would be fantastic, but learning to kill it is not gonna be the answer for Salem, so it would have to be something else. And again, don't mistake this for love for the cat, I only like him is all. And the reason's really more focused on our heroes and what this whole story can be, because if we take in that this is a character growth volume where we've come to grips with a lot of our emotions, we've had our character developed a lot, and we've had that time away from Remnant to learn about ourselves, it would also be helpful if that time away we learnt about things going on. And it was sort of suggested that might be the case. It feels like there's things we should learn. How often do we have contact with any beings to do with the gods? Super rare. So if there's an opportunity to learn from someone, this is a new someone who has some sort of direct link to the gods. So it just seems like it's our last opportunity. It might be our only chance to learn of another solution with an active equivalent to Salem. And for our heroes to learn that the solution to stopping the mad rampage of a magical being cursed by the gods themselves is just to kill and destroy it, that doesn't work when our villain can't be killed or destroyed, so I'm just hoping for something a little bit more. Anyway, the countdown is on till the finale, and until next time, my name is Rigger, hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I did alright.